Podemos começar, então, já recebemos o ok. Boa tarde a todas, todos e todes. É uma alegria imensa hoje terminar essa jornada que tivemos de 2 dias com a nossa experimentação aqui, chamada primeiro Colóquio Internacional, Contaminações Sensíveis, procedimentos com arte, educação e filosofia. Para terminar essa jornada, a gente tem aqui a presença do professor Masschelein, que é uma referência importantíssima para a gente, que trabalha com essa interface entre arte, educação e filosofia aqui no Grupo Olho e no Grupo Fala. Eu sou a Kelly, para quem não me conhece, sou professora aqui na Faculdade de Educação há um pouco mais de 2 anos. E esse evento, ele é fruto de um desejo meu e do Christian de compartilhar esses momentos disso que a gente tem pensado em fazer e construindo essa pesquisa em torno dessas contaminações, dessas afetações que tanto o campo da arte, da onde eu venho, de graduação, quanto o campo da filosofia e da educação podem ter e que potências isso pode causar, né? Então, primeiro de tudo, eu preciso começar agradecendo a possibilidade desse evento ter acontecido. É o primeiro evento que a gente faz acadêmico, eu e o Christian, e a gente contou com a grande ajuda da Thaís, que acho que foi a pessoa que perguntou pelo evento, assim, não vai ter aquele evento que vocês pensaram e um dia imaginaram? E a gente falou, vamos, vai, então vamos fazer. Aí a gente está aqui agora, então começo agradecendo a Thaís por ter dado esse empurrãozinho novamente. Agradeço todo o setor de eventos, o setor da IAD, que está ajudando a gente com a transmissão, o setor, enfim, a coordenação da graduação, a coordenação da pós-graduação, o gabinete da reitoria, a direção da faculdade, porque, no fim, em 1 mês e pouco, a gente correu e fez esse evento acontecer e está sendo muito bonito. E, por fim, eu queria agradecer essa possibilidade, não é por fim ainda, tá? Tem muitos agradecimentos, mas o que eu estava pensando aqui, que é algo novo para a gente, conversando com o Zé e o Cris, é essa possibilidade de a gente trazer essas universidades irmãs mais para perto aqui na Faculdade de Educação. Acho que isso é muito honroso para a gente que estudou na USP, igual eu e o Christian, fizemos toda a nossa graduação e pós-graduação lá, estar aqui hoje, poder honrar os nossos mestres e trazer as pessoas que a gente gostava de ouvir enquanto estudantes, agora para dialogar como colegas, né? É muito gostoso poder fazer isso, porque, afinal, acho que até esse evento ele é fruto dessa inquietação e desse desejo que a gente tem de dialogar. Talvez essa seja uma das melhores coisas que eu estou descobrindo de ser docente, que é essa possibilidade desses diálogos. Eu não esperava tanto pelos ofícios, por tantos pareceres e por um monte de outras coisas burocráticas do caminho, mas esse diálogo que a gente estabelece com os mais jovens e com aqueles que nos inspiraram a ser quem a gente é maravilhoso. Então, acho que a figura do professor Zé Sérgio simboliza para a gente aqui hoje essa vontade de estar perto, né? E voltar às nossas raízes também. E, por fim, eu queria agradecer o professor Christian Vince, que é meu colega, meu amigo de vida e uma pessoa fundamental para mim nessa jornada aqui, que a gente conseguiu constituir essa parceria para crescer e se propor a pensar juntos. Quem sabe um dia, como Deleuze e Guattari, brincadeira, né? Como Masschelein e Simons, mas, assim, no mínimo, a gente daria uma ótima dupla sertaneja, Kelly e Christian, né? Isso a gente já sabe. O Cris, ele gosta muito de dizer que esse evento só está acontecendo porque eu que fiz as coisas, mas é uma modéstia necessária, assim, nessa relação até de orientação, que às vezes ele é o bad cop, eu sou a good cop, os nossos orientandos sabem disso, né? Eu tenho as ideias mirabolantes e ele fala, tá bom, vamos lá, vamos fazer. Então, não teria nada disso acontecido sem você, meu amigo. Bom, a ideia de contaminação, ela está presente na no título não só desse colóquio, mas em outras apresentações que a gente já fez, e talvez nesse viés de aproximação entre as nossas pesquisas, não com essa leitura talvez negativa que a gente tem, primeira da palavra, a contaminação, né? A gente pensa na pandemia, a gente pensa nas doenças, mas a contaminação como uma estratégia de sobrevivência das espécies, né? Dos seres humanos e não humanos. Isso é bem interessante de ver. Não sei se vocês, imagino que sim, leram um livro da Anna Tsing, do cogumelo do fim do mundo, que ela vai fazendo uma analogia com o cogumelo Matsutake, que é um cogumelo que cresce em florestas devastadas por ação do capitalismo, e esse crescimento dele faz com que a floresta mude e que todo o bioma e as relações entre espécies ali mudem por meio de contaminação e colaboração. Então, a ideia que a gente traz aqui de contaminação é essa, de que contaminação e colaboração são essenciais para o desenvolvimento e para a sobrevivência das nossas espécies, né? Então, eu gostaria de pensar aqui, por meio dessa contaminação, que esse espírito de colaboração e contaminação que é o que traz a nossa vontade de estar aqui hoje, terminar essa fala com o professor Jean Masschelein, é um jeito de coroar essa possibilidade dessas contaminações de fato, né? O professor Jean Masschelein tem escrito e pensado coisas que nos atravessam e que nos ajudam a pensar a escola não só do ponto de vista do sistema escolar ou do dispositivo, mas como esse lugar dessa experiência em que coisas acontecem e que a gente sai mudado delas, né? Então, eu gostaria agora de fazer essa introdução do professor Jean Masschelein. O professor Jean Masschelein é professor titular na Faculdade de Psicologia e Ciências Educacionais, membro da equipe do Laboratório de Educação e Sociedade da Universidade de Leuven, na Bélgica. Sua pesquisa diz respeito principalmente ao papel público da escola e da universidade. Mais especificamente, ele se concentra em reinventar suas formas públicas de trabalho e estudo em confronto com desafios sociais e tecnológicos. Junto com estudantes, ele se dedica a projetar práticas e espaços pedagógicos experimentais, com especial atenção ao cinema, à cartografia, à caminhada. Tem 2 livros de destaque aqui no campo educacional brasileiro, um é Em Defesa da Escola e o outro a Pedagogia, a Democracia e a Escola. Eu combinei com o professor Jean que eu vou ficar sentada ali para ver com vocês, porque eu quero anotar as coisas que ele está falando, depois eu volto para fazer a mediação. E a gente combinou também que vai haver a tradução das perguntas, então, quando houver as perguntas, a Clarissa vai sussurrar aqui no ouvido dele e ele vai falar mais devagar para ela poder fazer a tradução. Caso alguém tenha qualquer dificuldade com alguma palavra, a gente pede para vocês levantarem a mão, a Clarissa dá uma ajudada e a gente também na tradução. Pode ser assim? Então, professor Jean, thank you very much for being here. We are very, very excited to listen to you once more. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking. It's not bom dia, but something like that. So I'm sorry, I don't speak Portuguese. And it's also very difficult for me to understand it, but I could understand the Spanish, but not the Portuguese is much more difficult. So I apologize for that. My English is not the English of a native speaker, so I think that and I hope that it will be rather easily to understand me, and if not, please ask me to say again, and we can have some help from the translator if that is needed. So first of all, thank you very much. I'm very grateful and honored that I can present some thoughts here, that I could assist also the presentation of Sergio and of Beatrice, who I know for a long time now. And they have been speaking about the school. I am not going to speak about the school. So if you have questions afterwards about the school, because I suppose that some of you might know the book In Defense of the School. So if you have questions, afterwards we can talk also about that, no problem. But I am not going to speak about the school. I want to speak about and to talk about a university course. A course for students in education that I teach now for more than 20 years. And you see this course is related to a study journey, And for me, this is a very important element of the course, the study journey. And maybe it's interesting to keep in mind these two quotes. Yes. So one is from Alfred North Whitehead, a British philosopher, British-American philosopher, who said that the universities should become homes of adventure. Yes, essentially homes of adventure. And then François Tosquel, who is a French Catalan psychiater, who says so that it is the foot which is the difficult to translate in English, c'est le pied qui est le grand lecteur du livre du monde. It's the foot, it's with the foot that you read the book of the world. It's with the feet that you read the book of the world. And so keep this a little bit in your mind, because this is also what I'm going to talk about. So it's a university course, and it's maybe interesting to recall the foundation of the universities. The first universities, they were called in Latin Universitas Studium. Yes, Universitas Studium. The notion of universitas had nothing to do with universal. The universitas was the Latin name for a gathering, for an association to come together. The universitas is coming together, and it is because there were many gatherings, and universitas, universitate, you had to specify what gathering it was, and this was a gathering to study. And this gathering to study, the studium, this studium is also a particular kind of studium. There are many forms of study, but university study is dealing with societal challenges. Think of the first University of Bologna, who was founded because it reacted to the new laws that were established by Bologna to come for foreigners to come to Bologna. So it is a way to deal with societal challenges by turning these challenges into an object of undefined collective and public study. Yes. So university study is undefined, meaning it has no defined end, it has no destination, nor not a defined end. It is collective, and it is always also public. And so I take my course to be part of this universitas, of a gathering to study collectively. The course is called, as you see, is called Mondial Education. So it's not called global education. Yes? It's mondial education, and it refers to a distinction that Edouard Glissant, which is a Caribbean poet and writer and philosopher that you might know, yes, who is talking precisely, who is saying we don't have to think globally. With the global is thinking about the world as a globe, and then we can look from a distance to that globe and keep at a distance. But he's especially speaking about mondialité, very difficult to translate in English, mondialité. But this mondialité is referring for him to a certain intensity of relations and transformations. That's what the world is about, an intensity of relations and transformations, yes, that can be good or bad. So he's not saying good or bad, they can be good or bad. And so the course, Mondial Education, wants to relate education and thinking about education to the mondialité, to the monde, to these intense relations. I think it's important also to say that it is a design course. So students get assignments to design something. Yes? In the case that I'm going to use one example, the example that I'm going to use is about the design of a pedagogical atlas of a city. And the city is Brussels. It's the capital of Belgium, so it's the city. And so the design assignment is to design an atlas, a pedagogical atlas of Brussels. So this course involves a study journey, an invitation for a study journey, which is usually between 8 and 15 days. And this invitation for me translates the motto of that you know from Kant, the motto of the Enlightenment, sapere aude. Sapere aude, that for Kant is translated as an injunction to dare to know. Yes, to dare to know and to think for yourself. Yes, but for Kant, thinking for yourself means that you have to subject the thinking and the things you are reasoning about to the tribunal of reason. So for Kant, daring to think is about judging. Yes? But this motto of sapere aude is not coming from Kant. It's coming from Horace, yes, a Latin poet, and it translates, in fact, not as judging, but it is an injunction to begin. It's an injunction to dare a first step, and that first step is not about judging or about testing, but precisely about tasting. Dare to taste, dare to taste. And what is tasting? And I refer to a translation that is made by Isabelle Stengers, which maybe some of you might know also, a Belgian philosopher, who says, so tasting is the adventure of learning to perceive the effects of indeterminate, situated encounters with some things or some ones. So you could say here, to refer to the title of the colloquium here, that it is about risk contamination. Yes, risk contamination. Dare to taste. Risk the encounter. Yes, risk contamination. So the study journey, as the translation of this injunction, sapere aude, is a kind of field work. It's a field study which is the basis for the design work. Yes, the field study is the basis for the design work. And think about it as field work in an age of telework. We are in the age of telework. And also at the university, many students want to learn everywhere all the time when they want. So that means on platforms, telework. Study becomes telework. Yes. So, but this is an invitation to field work, not to telework. And it is an attempt, so to stage a true and adventurous encounter between students and the field that has not only, come back. So it is staging an adventurous encounter between students and the field that has not only transformative power regarding the students, so they are learning to perceive things, yes, to notice and to perceive things, but also allows to reconsider and reimagine the field. So transforming the students and transforming the field at once, together. So restructuring, you could say, the sensitivities and the perceptions of the students and transforming the imagination of the field. Yes? How the field presents itself. So this is a kind of investigation, yes, or study, but this is not just about a lack of knowledge, but it implies a process of transformation. It's not just for a lack of knowledge and to get knowledge and to accumulate knowledge, but it's also about a process of transformation. It is about trying, so it is a design course, like designing here the pedagogical atlas. It can be designing a school for youngsters that are not willing to go to school. It can be many, many things, but it's an attempt to make the field truly relevant for the design. Yes? Making the field truly relevant for the design. And concretely, the injunction translates in an invitation to go walking. Think about Tosquel. You need the feet to read the book of the world. It's about walking, it's about mapping, it's about talking and writing in particular ways. And I will come back to this matter. Okay. Yeah. So walking, mapping, writing, talking in particular ways. And I don't consider it as to be methods making together a kind of methodology, but it are manners, yes? Ways to handle. So think about these notions. I don't know, I think there is a connection also in the Portuguese probably. The manners, it's the hand, we're referring to the hand, and the handling is also referring to the hand. So it is doing something with the hands and with the feet. So it's a way of handling, and this way of handling will imply all kinds of protocols, a certain discipline, certain kinds of discipline, and importantly, work to be done. Work to be done. Yes. So field work, as I said, in times of telework, in order to make our thinking and our designing land. And for those that are going to the Biennale, we went yesterday, we had the luck to go there yesterday. It's also talking about this, yes? It's to bring our thoughts and our designs from the highs, from looking at the globe, so to say, to make them land, to make them go down again. And so I want to talk about this rejuvenating of the study journey, also not as a concept, but as a concrete art, as an art of arranging a form of pedagogical work. So that means that a large part of what I'm going to say will be a technical story. So I will introduce ways of working, yes? Ways of working to make students, and not only students, also professors, land again. Yes? And before I do that, I want to offer you some distinctions, which are a little bit more theoretical, you could say, some more theoretical distinctions regarding walking and regarding this notion of the formative encounter, before I am going to talk about some ingredients of the study journey, that what is offered, the meal that is offered to taste, the field. So some distinctions, and let me start with a distinction that is made by Tim Ingold, which is maybe also a name that some of you might know. It's an anthropologist, a British anthropologist. And so Ingold, in a very nice text, makes a distinction between two kinds of walking the streets, of walking. Think about my design assignment is the pedagogical atlas of Brussels, so they are going to walk Brussels, they're going to walk the streets of Brussels. And so Ingold is making a distinction between two kinds of walking. The first kind of walking is what he calls the intentional navigating. Intentional navigating. That is what most of us, most of the time, do. Yes? That means that we are going from one point to another. We go from one point to another because we have all kinds of intentions. Yes? We want to go to buy something, we want to go to see this one, we want to go to visit that. So we have intentions. Yes? So we go from one point to another, and in order to go from one point to another, we navigate, and the navigation is mainly intentional choice. We choose in function of the intention. Yes? So that means, I quote Ingold, is saying, the emphasis is on the intention, which is cause, and also action as effect. So that is what we most of the time do. But he distinguishes this kind of walking from what he calls an attentional kind of walking, and he uses there the notion, the English notion, wayfaring. I am not sure that I would be able to translate that. I can even not translate it very well in my own language, Dutch. So wayfaring, but maybe it's interesting to refer to this distinction that he makes between the adult-like way of walking and the child-like. The child is wayfaring. It is not walking by intention, but by curiosity. It is taking all the time. It has no idea where it has to go. It has no idea of an end point. There is no commanding view of the end. It just goes, and along that what solicits attention. That is where it goes. So the child is curious. This is a distinction that is made by Ingold. But I want to add a distinction. Yes, I want to add a distinction. I think that there is not only adult-like and childlike walking, but that there is also what I call student-like walking. And I take as a starting point what Walter Benjamin is also speaking a lot about walking through cities. And he's saying at some point that walking through cities like a child, that is what he would like to do, but in opposition to it, or in contradiction to the child, as an adult, it needs a lot of effort. You have really to do something in order to enable yourself to walk attentionally through the city. Because as adults, we have very strong intentions, yes? And always intentions present. So I think that to walk as a student, you could say to walk a curriculum, yes? To walk a curriculum, you need not just the curiosity, but you need also, with a Latin, not the curiositas, but also with a Latin word, the studiositas. Yes? So you need to do something. You need an effort. Yeah. So you need an effort, and that effort you could take it from the Latin studium, the Universitas Studium. The studium, if you translate it in English, and it's a very nice translation in English, it is regard. Regard. Yes. And regard has at least 2 or 3 meanings, which are very interesting. So the regard is to observe, like the French, regarder, to look. Yes. But regard means also to respect, yes, to take care, regard means also to feel obliged to something. So it's not just a kind of distant, indifferent observing, but it is taking care of something. It is being involved in something. And so I think that you can translate studiositas not just as a quest for knowledge, but precisely as a quest for encounter. A quest for encounter. An encounter is again an interesting word in English. It also comes from the Latin, and you have the same or something similar in French, the rencontre. Yes. So what is interesting about that word, so if you have the encounter, we can translate it as a meeting, yes, as meeting someone, encounter. In French, you can say faire connaissance, which is also a very nice translation, faire connaissance. So I meet you. It's not just I know you, but it's an encounter. But in the English and the Latin and the French, you have the contre. It's contre. So it's not just a meeting, it means that there is something in presence of you. You are in the presence of something opposed to, confronting you. Yes? So it's not a nice thing, encounter. The encounter means also something counter. You encounter something that you cannot easily say like this. It's mine. So it's the quest not just for knowledge, but the quest for encounter. And so walking as a, this study journey, I think as a kind of walking with studiositas, is also, I think, not just about to receive. It's not about to get something, to get some knowledge, but precisely also about giving time to something, yes, outside yourself, to pay, yes, to pay attention. It's paying. You have to, there is something that you have to do, yes, something that you have to offer, to give, in order to become interested. Yeah? That's also very interesting again, so I'm sorry that I'm going, but we all speak, if you speak English, but probably also Portuguese and French, we all speak Latin and Greek all the time. And so in that sense, I think it's similar. So interest, it's precisely in between. In between. That is the position, that is no position, because it is out of position of the student. The student is in between. He or she has to give up who or she is precisely in order to encounter. Yes? Otherwise, there would be no encounter. So it is the student exists only, exist also, sorry. It's again the Latin, the ex ist, is staying out of oneself. Ex ist, to exist in the interest. And then I think it's interesting to say this being in the middle, if you want, in the in-between. This is not just happening through experience, Yes. Again, the X, you are taken out. Experience can take you out, but it's created through exercise. Exercise. Yes. So you have to do something. You have to work to do that. Yes. And the exercise is also, again, an interesting Latin word, which comes from ex arceo, and arceo is to be imprisoned. So ex arceo, the exercise, is the way in which you get out of the prison. That's the exercise, out of the prison of yourself, out of you get out. And so, for me, the field work as exercise, which is also a studium, should bring students in the middle, in the inter-est. So inviting them to walk and to map is trying to invite them to the middle, yes, to this in-between. So that regarding the distinction between the walking. So you have the walking, the childlike, the adult-like, and the student-like. Let me say now a few things more about the formative encounter, and then I come to the concrete exercise. So the formative encounter, and I am referring here to a book about from Baptiste Morisot and Estelzang Menguel, who are themselves very strongly inspired by Gilbert, not Georges, but Gilbert Simondon, a French philosopher. And it's a book regarding the encounter of artworks. So how you encounter artworks. And they say, and I just take some things that I think are interesting. They say, so they start from a kind of observation that many people go to museum and go to artworks and nothing happens. Just go, I've seen it. Yes, I've seen it. Yes, of course, I've seen it. That's it. So they are trying to think about what would be, how could we think about a true encounter? So think about what I said in the beginning, when it is also about restructuring your sensibilities and your perceptions. Yes? Not just to know the artwork, but that there is a kind of transformation involved. And they say that true encounter is not about individualizing. Yes, that is becoming more different from others. It's to become unique. I am different from you. That's individualizing. But they use the term, it's a translation from the French to the English, which is individuating. That is what they call it. And individuating is precisely about restructuring perceptions, sensibilities, thinking, habits, not to differentiate more from others, to say I am different and even more different from you and from you, but precisely to bind one with and to others in a kind of collective shared configuration or reconfiguration. Yes. So this encounter, when you think about it like this, it implies that there is always a kind of undefined part. Yes, an undefined part that precisely in the encounter can get a certain binding, can get a certain definition. So, in the encounter, they say, with the matter, in their case, the artwork, in my case, the city, the field, the city, its singularity, the singularity of the work, or the singularity of the city, yeah, is not, that, and the way that it can matter, that it can be of concern, is not predating the encounter. Yes? And nobody can know how it can going to matter. So it's not the way it is going to matter. The singularity of the work, yes, is not predated, is not pre-given, but it can be noticed or not. You can see it, so to say, or not. And they say also there is no recipe for a true encounter. So this true encounter is the encounter that is changing our sensibilities and our perceptions. Yes? Most of our encounters, of what they say, most of our encounters with artwork are no true encounters. Nothing happens. Nothing transforms or is changed. But, so there is no recipe, but they say there can be some dispositives to help. Mainly to help a different way of approaching artworks, in their case, artworks, which they call the digesting ethos. The digesting ethos or the digesting habit, yes, that's the way in which we most of the time approach artworks. Yes, think also about the meal, it's about digesting. So it's not tasting, but digesting. It's a kind of, could say, kind of consuming, a kind of consuming, which is about attending something, in this case, the artwork, that leaves no traces, no real traces in the senses and the minds, so it's not restructuring, is have no existential or formative effects. And so, taking that distinction between a digestive ethos and the true encounter, so the study wandering that I try to arrange with the students, the field work is to try to stage a true encounter and to suspend this digestive ethos. The digestive ethos where the artwork or the cities, in fact, become the background for example, an original picture of oneself, or some anecdotes that you can tell about the artist. And there are little traces, except maybe the pictures that we take of ourselves before the artwork. Yes? So little is happening there. This digesting ethos is not only to blame the visitors. Yes? It's not just to blame the visitors, but there are also many, many, many devices and many ways in which things are presented to us today. Think about this, that is continuously accompanying us when we are walking, yes? To know what we are seeing, to know where we are going, to know what we will meet, what it is that we meet. These devices and all the things that in musea and in cities are established in order to make you go in certain directions, so that makes you, allow you to navigate. Think about Ingold, the navigation regarding the intent, it's about the intention and choice, and making it today very easy, very easy. Everything is explained. You have also, if you go to an artwork, go to the Biennale, you will see there is a lot of explanation. Yes, a lot of explanation about what you are supposed to see, yes? What you are supposed to feel. Yes? So I think that these positives, they rob precisely the works or the city, in the other case, from its formative force, yes, from the transformative force it could have. So the study journey is about trying to create conditions to become students. So I take students not as a sociological category. You are not a student because you pay the fee. No. You are not a student because you think you are a student. Being a student is something that you can become at some moments, because it is precisely this being in between. So that means being exposed, being out of position. So being out of position means not having a position. So a student is not a social position, yes, in the way I understand it here, but is becoming interested, is becoming in between. So create the conditions for becoming students, for have a true encounter. That means to suspend the modes of presence of ourselves as dwellers, commuters, tourists, functionaries, including those of professionals, professional sociologists, professional economists, professional art researchers, and so on. That is a mode of meeting and experience that is very strongly affected by intentionality. Intention, a lot of intentions. So suspend this mode of presence, trying to interrupt the habit of digesting and promote tasting, and try to create a study mood, a study atmosphere. Yes, a study atmosphere meaning that you also try to liberate the field, in my case the city, from all kinds of discourses, liberated from all kinds of discourses that already define, identify the issues, the stakes, the actors, and so on. Yes? A discourse is making the course impossible. Yes? A course is a movement. A discourse is that what halts the movement. It's an identification. This is so and so. That is that what you have to see. It stops the movement. Yes? The discourses stop the movement. So it is liberating also the museum, the artwork, but also the city and the field from discourses to have a course. And so now let me show you or try to say something about the concrete ingredients of such a journey. So as I said, together with others, not me alone, together with others, we organize these for more than 20 years now in very different cities in the world, very different places in the world with students. That is, by the way I happened to arrive in Rio more than 10 years ago with students doing this kind of exercise. So that was the first time in Brazil, so I came there. And so what are the ingredients to make these walkings and mappings, to make them attentional, to make the visit to the city attentional and formative? And I have to, so I just here repeat what I just said. So try to support a true encounter, so in the field work, prevent that they only digest, allow the city to appear, yes, in its singularity, so starts to matter in its own way, become relevant in its own way. In my case, so designing a pedagogical atlas of Brussels was related to the observation that our pedagogical landscape is impoverished, is very strongly impoverished, because everything becomes learning, and you can learn everywhere all the time. It is completely independent from place and space. It seems as if learning is something that you can have in general. Yes. So also the pedagogical landscape and the distinctions that could be made, all kinds of pedagogical life, very, very, very different forms of pedagogical life are disappearing. So the intention was also to repopulate the landscape, to repopulate the educational landscape and map forms of pedagogical life. So to allow for designs that are related to what I call here, I take here a notion from John Berger. I don't know if you say John Berger or Jean Berger, because he's living since a very, very, very long time in France, but it's John Berger, and those in the arts will know John Berger. He's speaking about the study of Da Vinci of the horses, and the drawing that Da Vinci is doing, the studies, he calls it the studies, it's the studies of Da Vinci. And in these studies, he says what Da Vinci is doing, what is happening there, is an emigration of the senses. Yes, Da Vinci is with the horses. Yes? His senses are emigrated, and then it translates in the sketch. So allow for designs that relate to an emigration of the senses, and to imagine the pedagogical landscape, and to imagine is also to imagine literally, make images, yeah? Make imagining, yeah? To imagine, starting from studium, the observing and the attending. And the last one is to become sensitive for what matters in critical pedagogical work. And I want to add this notion of the critical, because I take it, again, the critical, I take it in a very particular way, which is a very classic way, which is not to judge. It's not about trying to say this is good or this is bad, this is valid or this is not valid. Critical means to make distinctions. Critical make this is not that, and this is not that. It's to make distinctions. To be critical, yeah, is to be able to make many, 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 many distinctions. Yes? It's not to see the forest, but it's to see an oak. It's to see, I forgot all the names in English of the different trees, but it's to see the different trees, is to make distinctions. Yes? Not to see. So it's critical also in that sense, and to make perceiving the field into collective work and make that precede the possible response, so the design. And since we learned that we are here in the place where Paulo Freire has been teaching, you will recall that what Freire, and the starting point, I think, of a lot of what Freire did afterwards, the starting point was angikos. Yes, it was that was the starting point. And what was angikos? Angikos was 5 or 6 weeks together with students, going to angikos, being there, going and walking the streets, mapping the streets, coming together, and then design a response. Yes, not from I have been in Recife, I have not been thinking, oh, this is what we are going to do, this is what we are going to do with Angikos, come, let's go, we are going there and we are going to apply what we have taught, and that is what we know. It was completely opposite. Yes? So I think that is the point. So it's to work, to be able to hear or to perceive a situation, and then to respond. That's the design. Yes? So let me now, because I'm taking a lot of time, I'm going slow, I'm sorry. I'm just going to show you very briefly something about the atlas, just that you have an idea, and then I give the ingredients, but it's just very mainly images. So this was the pedagogical atlas. It was unfolding learning. So it's not the overview, but it is an unfolding. It's a folding open, not an unfolding learning. And you see the example that was the protocol. So you had, but I come back to that. Take a line, note the invitations to learn and to study that you have on your line. Take a picture of each invitation, mark on the map where it is, have a conversation every 15 minutes, every 45 minutes with inhabitants, abstract the conversations to cards, make collective maps with the walks, the invitation to conversations, the languages encountered on the way on different scales, and they invented 235 sites that they made an inventory of. I will show you later a little bit more, but I think it's important to say something about, or no, maybe I can show you a little bit more about the site before. Here. So this was the atlas. Yeah, this is the atlas. So you see, this is Brussels. This is the center of Brussels. It's a five hooks. It's in the middle of the center of Brussels, and these are the walks that they did. These are the walks that the students did. These are the points that they marked on the map that they encountered, where learning was, where we was talking about learning, as you see here. These were the points in another way. And then, so they made this inventory, and then they went to these places. They had to take pictures of these places. They had to make a kind of panorama view of the places. You see here, different places. I'm just going very quickly. The languages that were spoken, and what happened to all these languages in Brussels. So here, to go there. Then they made all kinds of analyses of the way in which people were related to each other in these places. So you see this here. They were talking about these places, so kind of analysis. And you see a lot of things that they did, huh? and without end. It's an end. So it's to enrich the situation, yeah? Not to impoverish, not to reduce the thing. And okay, so just to give you very quickly an idea of something, it was a very developed atlas. It was something like this with all kinds of maps. So, but let me go to the ingredients. So the first ingredient you could say is to prepare with a variety of materials. And I say this because it has to do with the fact that you are not going to frame your journey before you start. So the aim is not to have a framework, but the aim is to have many words to talk about what you are going to see. So to have a language, to have a vocabulary with which you can talk about what you will notice and see around or through your journey. And so stimulate the openness to what could be pedagogical forms of life. What could be these kinds of life? The second point I think is very important is to walk arbitrary lines. What I mean by arbitrary lines means that it is I who define the lines, and I do it also arbitrary. For example, just draw a line. Straight through. I don't see where it goes. It's not to go somewhere. It's an arbitrary line. Yes? It's a very important thing. It's one of the ways to suspend intentions. Yes? There is a very strong tendency, as I said, to make choices based on intentions. Yes? I want to go there. In Rio, I want to go to the beach. Yes? So I will go to the beach because now I came from Brussels to Rio, so many kilometers, I want to see the beach. This is your line, you are going to follow your line, not the beach. Yes? So it's not the intention, it's to break the intentions. There are many intentions, and these intentions is not just I go there, but the intention is also, for example, or expression of intention is precisely also, I don't like the things where you have no light. Yes? Oh, this is dark, I'm not going there. Yes? Or this smells not very well, I'm not going there. A line is saying that can all be okay, but you follow the line. If the line goes through a place without light, you go through the place without light. Yes? And also, of course, there are many intentions on the side of the students, but there are many intentions on the side of the city. Of course, the city wants to get you somewhere, there where they sell something. So you have all kinds of signs, all kinds of organization of the streets that make you go to some places. So also a lot of intentions. So break or interrupt the intention. It's a simple thing, arbitrary lines, but it's a very interesting way of walking. The second thing is to agree upon a protocol. That has to, as I gave you the example of the protocol in Brussels, so take a line, each student has to take a line, then you have to agree upon what you are going to note, and you have to note it on that line, you have to follow your line, note what you see, the parameters. In this case, every word, everywhere you find the word learn, everywhere where you find it, you don't have to go inside, but outside, in the streets, everywhere you find learn, you note it and you mark it. That's an example of an element of a protocol. You should also agree, what, how, when, noting. Also where, when, and how conversing with whom. So they are asked to also have conversations with people that they meet. So you have to talk with students about how you are going to do that. How and what are you going to talk with? How are you going to start your conversation? Yes. And so also in these conversations, I think it's important also there to try to keep away too much stories. Yes. People tend to tell very quickly stories. Yes. But you have, in this case, they had to try to remain to the issue of the conversation, which was about learning at that place. Yes? Not a story, I come from there, I go there, no. Just trying. So I will come back to that, but we talked about Rancière. Yeah? Rancière is very, very, very right. Of course, it's Jacotot who is right. Jacotot who said, you have to start, what do you see? Not what you think. No. What do you see? Tell me what you see. Yeah? Tell me what you see or what you hear. That is what you have to describe me. And then we can start to think. But the first thing is, what do you see? And pay attention, not start to tell something. You have to show me that you have seen it, that it is this that you see. Yeah? Not tell stories. I don't want stories. Huh? That's what Jacotot, what Rancière is saying, and I think it's very right. Huh? So conversations about what there is to see and to hear. Taking photos, also photos, of course today that is very, 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 very easy, and so students have the tendency to make photos all the time. So if you say in the evening, in the conversations with students, you ask them, what have you seen? No, you have not seen that. That's a screen, that's something very different. What have you seen? Not the photograph that you have taken, which is not, it's not saying that you cannot take photographs, but that's a second thing. That's something that you can do afterwards. You can go back to that place and say, okay, that's maybe an interesting place and I can take a photo. But you cannot replace the photo by the writing of your notes, writing down what you have seen, sketch. So it means you have to walk with a notebook in which you write with your hands, in which you sketch with your hands. So it's not your phone that is going to take the trace and where you are going to store all the photos that you have. No, you have to do it with your hands, yes, and with your eyes. The study journey, so it's a lot of walking. So in this case, students walked days and days. And so along these lines, they get a line and they walk along that line day and night in a certain sense. They walk along that line, the same line. One student or a small group of students, one line, and they do the same thing all the time. So there is a lot of walking and mapping, but it is also important to have a workplace. there is also something that has to do with, and I come back to that, to the residential work. So it is important to have work being done inside. And so you need a shared workplace to work. So not I go home and I will do it at home and then I bring it tomorrow. No, we have a shared place. You are going to work here. We are going to work here together in this place. Important and maybe also a very crucial thing, which is I think very, not only for this exercise, but in general, I think, is that the learning or the formation or the formative element mainly has to do with the displacing from one medium in another. Yes? For example, if you're going to listen to a lecture, I think it is important to translate or to transmit or to displace what is said into what is written. Then you can displace again what is written into an image. You can displace the image again in something that is said, and so on. This mediatic displacement from one medium to another is a very important element, because there it is literally the element where you touch the subject, really touch the subject. Yes? In the very direct way of I touch it, in the direct way of I write it down, what is said. Yes? And then what is said, I can say it again. Yes? It's a very physical thing, a very physical thing. So make collective maps, different maps, all kinds of maps that you can make, that you can have. Make all kinds of models, maquettes, like ones that we did there. So kinds of models where you translate the walks here in a model. You can translate them in a map. You can translate the walks in cards. You can translate them in words. You can translate them in images. So this, I think, is a very important, the translation, the displacement of the media. So that is related also to these digital photos. Don't take them like this. If you want to use them, you can use them, of course. I would use them. It's very interesting with the things. But print them. Print them and put them on the wall. That's a very different thing than to have them on a screen, where they are like this. On the wall, they are there. And they remain there. They stay there. Not flexible. If you would like to look at a screen, then try to look at a shared screen. Yes, not at a personal screen, but at a shared screen, so that we share something together. Abstract the conversations, so conversations that you have with people on the street, write them down on cards. For example, in this case, we had 365 places, so there are all kinds of cards. We bring these cards together, we put them on the table. You have the words that have been said, abstracted from the conversation, and now you can start to combine the words. You can do all kinds of things with these words. You can look at them again, you can put them in different orders. It's a way to open up what is there for another imagination. Yes, it's nothing of what I'm saying is as such enough. Huh? It's the combination of all these things that can make something happen. Give names and legends to the map. I think that's also very important and is very crucial, and it is something that can be very contested. So, because, as you know, and I heard this at noon, that also here colonialism is a very hot topic, and so it has probably also to do with something like naming, giving names to things. So, of course, there is a bad way in which you can name, but naming, if you do it carefully, naming is precisely a way to help you to see distinctions, This is not that. Yes? And there is a story of, and now I forget her name, also famous writer, I forget her name, she's telling about Adam giving the names to the animals, yes? And then at a certain point, it's not giving name. Eva is saying you should not give names, the animals should give their own names. I don't have to give names. They can give their own names. But that is precisely indicating that there is no encounter. No encounter. Naming is a way of encountering, of making a distinction, of approaching something, and of making a distinction between this tree and this tree and this tree and this tree and this tree. It's not the same. Try to name, but of course, do it carefully. Do it carefully. And that's a very important way in which you can make distinctions. Make lists. I'm not going to go through that, but make lists like shopping lists. That means lists without meaning. For example, the lists of all the languages that you encounter. It has no meaning as such. The connection is not a kind of logical connection. It's just a list with the languages. Or make other kinds of lists. You can list of objects that you find on the floor or whatever. Make lists. Yes? Lists is again an arbitrary way to disrupt all kinds of logics that makes that one follows the other. It's disrupting the order. It's a list. So again, it's a way. It's all these things are about ways to open up your thinking, to be able to think a bit different from what you encounter, the field. But also, because it is a lot about handwork, yeah, it's also to land, to establish a physical relationship with the field. Try to make time for the collective work. I think that's a very important thing also. Work for the collective. That means don't try to engage too much in one-to-one conversations with your students, in dyadic relationships. If you go into dyadic relationships, it very quickly becomes a kind of personal thing. Yes? I think you have to stay away from the personal, in this case of exercise, to stay away from the personal. So make it collective, and if you have conversations, and have a lot of conversations with your students, have them around the material. We are going to look together at the maps. We are going to look together at what you have noted in your book. Put your book on the table and we are going to read it together and we are going to talk about it. So have a lot of conversations, but on the table or around the table. And this work, I think, as I said, is not just about observing in a certain sense, but it's generating a new city. It's generating a new city for these students. It's becoming a new city, a different city than the one that they thought they knew. So try to remain in the student mode. That's very important also. So certainly also for professors that accompany these kinds of exercises. So try not to go into the mode that you are going to explain what they see. Yes. That you know. I know, so also the professor has to do an effort to stay in the student mode. Take care of the work conditions. So in our case, this kind of journeys always involve a residential stay. So it means that we are with students together for 1 week or 2 weeks, doing nothing else. Yes, doing that. Try to offer also a kind of discipline, or establish a certain discipline involving what I call a social diet. A social diet. A social diet meaning that we agree, before we start, we agree you are not going to use your cell phone for having social contacts. Not with your parents, not with your friends, not with whatever. No social contact. You can use your phone. Yes, of course, it's a very wonderful thing to use in order to make pictures, to look up some things and so on. Okay. but we are on a social diet. We don't want the social, we don't want the group work, but we want the collective work, which is public work, which is work that has to do with the encounter, with being encounter, not the social group, not the sociality of the social group. So, social diet. Make time to have intensive conversations, the social diet here. So make sure that screen work and telework is not replacing the hand and the feet work. It is not replacing that. Work intensively, in these cases, so 1 week or 2 weeks, doing nothing else than doing this, which is intensive, but it also creates very often joy. So to make something together, to make this atlas, for example, together, to really make it and to pay attention to the aesthetics, yes, to make a beautiful atlas, not just some paper, not just something on a screen, but a real atlas, it's giving joy. Yes? And you know that joy, according to Spinoza, is one of the feelings that is opening up. Yes? That is what joy is doing. It's opening up. So try to work on a study atmosphere, and then finally also arrange for a public presentation. So all these journeys, they end with a public presentation. So that means that the work that is done is somewhere in the streets or somewhere in a cultural centrum, or it is presented. It is also public, so that also people can react to what the students have found, how they have read the city, how they have looked at the city, what they have found. And maybe the last thing, and then I will stop. The last thing is that what is interesting to mention, and Brussels is a very good example. You know that our friend Donald, you know who I mean, that our friend Donald, that he called Brussels the hellhole. Yes, the hellhole. Brussels is a hellhole. And to some extent, many of the students in our university, which is in Leuven, not in Brussels, no? Which is in Leuven, and which have many students coming from the country. It's not the really countryside, because you don't have any countryside anymore, or less, but nevertheless, not from big cities, you're coming from abroad. They don't like Brussels. They really don't like Brussels. Drugs, crime, all kinds of things, we don't want to go to Brussels. Yes. Well, most, I don't say all of the students, but most of the students, through this work, started to love Brussels. So it is also changing the relationship to, in this case, the city. Yes? And it made, I think, that the atlas that they designed, and there are many, many things I did not show, many, many, many things that they did in this atlas. I think that this atlas was really showing something about Brussels, imagining Brussels in a very new way, in a very different way, imagining the pedagogical landscape in a very different way, and hence that indeed their design, think again about Frère, that their design was based in the field work, not the telework, but the field work they did. Okay, stop there. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you again, Professor. It's always inspiring to hear you and listen to all your ideas. Now we are going to open to the questions and comments. I don't know if... eu vou falar em português, né? Porque tem a pessoa para traduzir. I'm sorry. Então, agora a gente abre para as perguntas, comentários, dúvidas. Ele até sugeriu, se alguém quisesse conversar sobre Em Defesa da Escola, que é o livro que talvez mais seja conhecido aqui. Bom, estamos abertos para comentários e perguntas. Jane, vem aqui. Porque está sendo...
Primeiramente, agradecer. Nossa, muito bom te escutar. Eu consegui entender a maioria, mas não tudo, então, se for repetitivo, eu peço desculpas, mas é um jeito também de te escutar falando mais uma vez, né? Honrar essa presença. Eu tenho várias questões, mas vou tentar me concentrar em duas. Uma delas é se essa articulação que você faz entre a caminhada curiosa do Ingold poderia se aproximar do conceito de deriva, né, que situacionista e tudo mais. Você tem uma aproximação direta. E a outra pergunta são duas provocações assim para pensar algo, né? Uma delas é o Careri, o Francesco Careri, veio na Flip no Brasil uma vez e convocou a plateia a caminhar, né, livremente, enfim. E uma pessoa na plateia fez uma provocação de volta, dizendo: "Mano, você está louco? A gente está no Rio de Janeiro, não tem como caminhar livremente, né?" Então, essa é uma questão. E aí a outra que se articula com essa a gente tem visto um crescimento, né, dos nomadismos digitais, das práticas mindfulness, enfim. Então, essa cooptação neoliberal, né, das práticas de atenção e deslocamento. Então, queria discutir um pouquinho mais sobre um modo de pensar ainda mais profundamente, né, uma caminhada situada, crítica, né, circunscrita ao contexto mesmo. Acho que é isso.
Alguém mais quer fazer uma pergunta agora? Do you want to answer before, or we can...
I don't know. I can answer maybe directly. I don't know. What is the best? What do you prefer? I can answer directly.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay. Yes. So I'm not sure that I really understood your question, but I think the first question was probably referring also to le bord, to the bord, and to the dérive, But I think there is a fundamental difference. So the dérive is a dérive. So it means that is very close to the child, to the childlike walking. So I just wanted to make precisely that distinction. So that it's, of course, there is a kind of dérive. There is a kind of dérive in your mind. Yes. But in order to have the dérive in your mind, you have to be very disciplined. So it's not just go. It's not just go. To open up your mind, you have to do a lot. It's not just, I really don't believe, for example, also for the designs. So I really don't believe in so-called brainstorms. I really don't believe in brainstorms. Your brain is under the power of many, many forces. Many forces, from advertisement to whatever, to your partner, to whatever. Many things that are forces that influence your thinking. So you have to do a lot of work to open up your mind. It's not just, in that sense, it's not, so to have a dérive, you don't have to dérive. You have to walk a line. You have to go, so to say, a straight line of an arbitrary line. It has not even been a line. You can also say, sit down for the whole day, this place, you only look in that direction and you know what you see. That's it. Nothing else. So it's a kind of protocol that helps you, or tries to help you to get away from this intention. And I think the derive, at least how it often is understood, is still too much intention. So I like this, I would like to see that, I would like to go there. Oh, this is attracting me. So for me, it's a derive in the mind. Needs no derive with your feet. So it's a different. I don't know if you have to translate. I don't know.
Eu vou resumir. Então, na realidade, é como se fosse aquele caminhar da criança, e ele fala em relação à mente que você tem que ser muito disciplinada. Então, você tem que estar com a mente muito aberta para todas as coisas. Eu não acredito em brainstorm. Eu acho que quando a gente faz o brainstorm, a gente está sob pressão de, por exemplo, propagandas ou de algum parceiro. Então, é um pensamento influenciado. Então, essa questão de caminhar numa linha, é como se fosse caminhar numa linha reta, dizer para alguém, sente-se, olhe somente para aquela direção, você vai ficar ali o dia todo, é um protocolo. Então, você tem que realmente livrar-se dessa intenção. Então, eu não concordo com isso, esse fato de dizer, eu vou ali, ou isso me atrai dessa forma, então, eu não concordo com essa questão intencional. Se eu falei algo que não faz sentido, me corrijam.
So the second question was about Rio and walking in Rio. So let me first of all say that some of the things that I say now as to be ingredients, yes, have been formulated because we made a lot of mistakes in Rio. So there were a lot of mistakes in the way we did the journey. Yes? We did it. Yeah. For example, one of the things was to go to Rio. That was already a mistake. That was already a mistake because it is so loaded in Europe. It is so loaded with all kinds of dreams, with all kinds of images of the beaches and things, that it is very difficult to get rid of that. So that's one thing. So for the Rio place was a very strong tourist image in the heads of the students. So that made it already very difficult to get rid of that. But there were many mistakes that we made and that we adjusted afterwards. But related to your walking, the walking, of course, that's something that, that also in Rio was the case, because we asked students to walk the lines, and the lines were arbitrary. We had taken lines on the maps. By the way, we have walked 2,500 kilometers and mapped in Rio in that time, in the 2 weeks that we worked there. And of course, some of these lines, they went through the favelas, and they went everywhere. So of course, the aim is not to scare, the aim is not to hurt or whatever, or to take that kind of risk is not the risk. That the risk of the contamination, that's something different than this kind of risk. So you can try to think, and like in Rio we did, you can try to think about ways to handle that. So one is, of course, you do not go alone. So that's one of the things. So in Rio they went with 3 or 4. They went with 3 or 4. That makes already a difference. But it creates a new problem. Creates a new problem, because if you go with 3, you are creating a social group. So they are going to talk to each other. They are not going to look and to listen. They are going to look to each other. They are going to stay in a group. So that's also something that is, something that is going against the idea of opening up. But I want to say you can think about ways in which you can reduce the kind of physical risk, if you want, or the kind of risk of violence. Another way that we did it was that one student, that we go to 2 students, that was not in Rio, that was in another place, that you go with 2 students, and one student go on one side of the street and the other on the other side of the street. So they don't influence each other, but they can see each other, they know each other. So yeah, you have to think about ways. But the starting point is try try to bring them in a situation of exposition, to expose them. So I'm not saying that this is the only way you can do it. So this is just what, over the years, some practices that we developed and that seemed at some point to work. But it's and yeah, you have to take into account. So another mistake that we did in Rio was that we make mixed groups with students from Rio, from the URG, and students from Leuven, from my university. Totally wrong. Totally wrong, because they start to explain Rio. Of course, they start to open. Of course, they say, oh, this is, I know, this is the guide. Oh, you should not go there. Or should, no, of course. So, wrong. So we made many of these kind of mistakes that makes it then sometimes very difficult to arrive to really reimagine the city and really come up with a design that is responding in some way to the situation. And
primeiro, quando eu estive no Rio de Janeiro, nós cometemos muitos erros, por isso que nós reformulamos os ingredientes, porque o Rio de Janeiro é considerado como imagem turística, e é assim que a Europa vê, com essas imagens cheias de fotos das praias. Então, essa questão, né, da caminhada arbitrária, eles caminharam 2.500 quilômetros em 3 semanas, passaram pelas favelas. Isso não quer dizer que você tenha que ter medo, que você vai se machucar, isso é ao contrário do risco de contaminação. Há muitas formas de você tentar imaginar sobre isso. Uma delas é não ir sozinho. Por exemplo, quando estivemos lá, nós somos em grupos de 3, 4 pessoas, porém é um problema, porque aí você não ouve, você não vê as coisas, você acaba ficando somente preso às pessoas do seu grupo. Então, e aí isso vai contra aquilo de você se abrir. Apesar dos problemas, dos riscos físicos no Rio, a questão da violência, um outro exemplo é você ter 2 alunos e colocar um em cada lado da rua, um observa uma coisa e vice-versa. Mas a intenção aqui, o ponto de partida, é realmente você trazer isso para que você se exponha. Então, expor essa situação. E depois de muitos anos de prática, nós, né, temos que levar isso em consideração. E, novamente, um erro. Nós, quando reunimos, né, misturamos os grupos, tanto da minha universidade quanto a do Rio, as pessoas que estavam no Rio sempre falavam, eu conheço isso, eu sei disso, então foi um outro erro. É muito difícil conseguir fazer isso, reimaginar e vir e ter uma ideia desse design quando fazemos isso.
There was another question about the digital, but I did not understand the question.
Nomadism and the digital workers that are living around the world now, this kind of mindfulness and rememberism, how the walking as a practice of critique and attention can be held. I think it was.
Yeah. So if there is one motto of the journey, you could say, except from Sabere, the second one would be make it physical. Make everything as much as possible physical. So it's a very general response, but it's making it physical. If you use photographs, make them also on paper. Make them on paper that you have them. Yes? So if you record conversations, transcribe the conversations with your hand while listening on cards. Have the cards, look at the cards. So it's this translation, I think, and this using of physical media, which allows us to think, to think in a different way, to make different connections, to rethink, to reconsider things. So make it physical as much as you can. Of course, we also use the digital as a kind of help. It can help, but try to avoid as much as possible. You are already the whole year in the digital, no problem. No? So there is no point about being 1 week or 14 days not without the digital, but reducing. It's
Como moto dessa jornada é sempre o físico e sempre utilizar tudo, seria a minha resposta geral para isso. Então, por exemplo, as fotos, as imprima, se você tiver qualquer apresentação, qualquer fala que você tenha gravado, as transcreva, use os cartões, ou traduza tudo que você tiver, escreva tudo, né, à mão, transcreva, né, vocês têm de transcrever, isso faz com que vocês, né, pensem em novas formas, reconsiderem, se conectem. Então, a ajuda aqui seria realmente tentar evitar tudo que é digital, porque vocês passam o ano todo no mundo digital, então uma semana, né, fazendo isso não seria nenhum problema.
A gente tem mais uma pessoa, mais alguém quer fazer pergunta, só para a gente fazer a gestão? Tá, então a gente ouve mais essa e depois a gente faz esse outro bloco.
Muito obrigada, professor, pela sua fala bastante provocativa. E inspirada pela essa provocação, eu gostaria de te ouvir um pouco sobre uma imagem que o senhor usou, a imagem do provar, to taste. E eu fiquei pensando o quanto o aprender, ou quanto os estudantes, quando aprendem, não estão justamente provando, tasting, diferentes sabores, como eles, ao invés de consumirem, né, digerirem esses conhecimentos, eles estão provando, sentindo, experimentando esses diferentes encontros. E eu gostaria de saber se o senhor acha que existe alguma forma de paralelo entre o aprender e o provar entendido aqui como tasting.
I'm not sure that I really understood the question. So you refer to one of the...
To taste.
Tasting, yeah?
Can I, if you want, can I try to explain in English, perhaps? So when you talk about the fact that they taste instead of digesting the encounters, can we think about learning something or studying something as a way to taste things, in the sense that we are not consuming, we're not digesting, we are sensing the different flavors, the different textures, and being transformed by this experience of tasting something different?
So for me that would be a way to say that, to talk about study. Yeah? That study is that kind of learning. You have many kinds of learning. Yes, you can learn. I can learn, and I learned to some extent some Spanish through Duolingo. Yes. Like many language you can learn, of course, you can learn in many ways. You can learn things, but I cannot say that the Spanish that I met through Duolingo has changed anything in the sense of my taste of Spanish. So it's a very different way of relating. As I think that the tasting is accepting that you can be changed, yes? That you can be affected. So that is not, I want this, I would like this, I want to have this, but that it is something that is done to you. Yes? Like a contamination, if you want. It is something that is happening to you. It is not something that you can intend. But you can. But we are all, I think, very strong in avoiding contamination. So in immunize ourselves in a certain way. So the study journey is, in a certain sense, to weaken you. So to make you I have called a long time ago the kind of pedagogy that is involved here, I called it a poor pedagogy. Yes, poor, and I think it's poor. Poor in the sense that it does not give you any arms against something. So it is trying to help you to be vulnerable to some extent. So, of course, it's a kind of balance. It's not, as I said, with the example of Rio. So it's not to go to the favelas and let you be shot or something like that. That's not the point. But there is an element of, there is an element of daring. There is an element of daring. Yes. But I think that's the same for me. Now I think here you have a very material example in the sense of a city, but in a certain way, that's the same with reading. If you read a text, that's what Nietzsche was saying. So if you read a text and you want to stay the same while reading, you are not reading. So also you can read in a way that you are exposed, yes? But also there, it's not simple. Also there, very often it means, like Rancière himself is referring to, I copy the text 10 times, or I learn the same theater piece by heart, and I rehearse it again and again and again and again, in order to maybe open up a comprehension of the text which is very different. So also there I have to work to read differently in an open way. So for me that's similar. It's a similar thing.
Sim, seria algo parecido com o estudo, é uma forma também de aprendizado. Há muitas formas, como, por exemplo, aprender espanhol pelo Duolingo. Eu quero, né, aprender o espanhol, mas não seria a mesma coisa. Se eu dissesse que seria a mesma coisa que essa vontade de aprender pelo Duolingo, não seria realmente esse fato. Então, esse gosto é você aceitar que você vai ser mudado, que você vai ser afetado. É como, de fato, uma contaminação, mas sem a intenção. Então, você tem de ser forte o suficiente para evitar isso. Então, você tem de ser imunizado. É como a pedagogia pobre, vocês diriam? Essa, uma pobre pedagogia, onde você, né, se torna vulnerável. Então, tem de haver um equilíbrio. Como eu mencionei, o Rio de Janeiro. Então, você tem de sempre um elemento muito importante disso, é que você tem que sempre se atrever a fazer as coisas, né, que é o daring que ele usa. Como exemplo, né, seria a cidade. Então, é como se lesse um texto, por exemplo, mas aí você se manter da mesma forma. Você lê aquilo e você não muda nada. Então, significa que você não leu. Mesma coisa quando você copia um texto 10 vezes, ou quando você tem que ensaiar uma peça, né, uma parte de uma peça de um teatro. Então, há muitas maneiras de você fazer isso, mas você tem de sempre estar aberto.
A próxima pergunta.
Pois você, Matheus.
I can try to make in English. Okay. So thank you very much for your presentation. I am actually a dance student, so it's very nice to hear you talking about walking and how we really need to ground our feet and relation to the whole body. So I want to ask you how the relation with the body and space really create a relation into the environment, and how this aspect, body and space, create us a time for a study, for learning. You understand something?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I have no real theory about that, but I really believe that the physical engagement, and that can be walking, but of course there are some people that cannot walk or that have difficulty in walking, but that a strong physical engagement, like I just said, it can also so the copying by hand of a text, so it can be copying and copying again and copying again, that this physical relationship to something that is very important to, not only to open your body in a certain sense, to some sensations and experiences, but precisely to open your mind. to bring your thinking somewhere else. Yes. So again, I really don't believe that you come to good ideas if I say we are going to sit around the table and we are going to brainstorm. I really don't believe that there is any good idea coming from that kind of activity. So it's not a brainstorm. No. Maybe it could help if, rather than have a brainstorm, okay, what are we going to talk about? Okay, this is what we are going to talk about. Start by, you write down what you think about it. Then you write it down. Yes? You write it down, and then when you have written it down, you give it to your neighbor. Your neighbor is going to displace it by saying it, and you are going to listen what is said. And then, and so on. So it's the work that has to be done in order to help you to get somewhere. It's not, and it's physical work. For me, it's really physical work, and the walking is a very strong, for me, is a very strong way. There are many, of course, you will know, there are many, there is a lot of literature about walking as a kind of, as an activity, as a mind opening and things like that. But take care again. Also your body is traversed by all kinds of forces. So you also have to think about how you walk, because also it's not enough to go outside and walk. So that is why I say I really want to make this distinction between this childlike walking and this student-like walking. It involves work. It involves work, because we are all constantly in a force field. It is a force field that is constantly, and also a force field that is related also to our past, to our social context, to the historical context, to the economic, to all kinds of forces that constantly, it's a force field. It's a force field, and so you have to create a kind of moment of suspension of some of these forces in order to open something up. So you need work. You have to work. For me, that's also the reason why I say, especially today, in schools, children should handwrite. Especially today. Yes. It's because there is this strong force of the AI and the field and everything like that. That is language. Language models. Yes, large language models. That's language. In order to deal with that force, you have to learn how that force works. So you have to learn to write by hand. By hand, yes, by hand. It's very physical. You have to work. Otherwise, these forces will just take over. And take over, because we think in language, it will take over your thinking. So
eu acredito muito que, na verdade, eu não tenho uma teoria correta para isso, mas eu acredito que esse engajamento físico, como no caso a caminhada, é o principal. Como eu disse, né, o exemplo de você escrever, né, escrever algo com as mãos, isso não só mantém o seu corpo aberto, como também a sua mente. Então, você tem que pensar né, em ideias, mas eu não acredito no brainstorm, como eu já mencionei. Então, vocês, né, sentam-se e fazem um brainstorm, isso não é algo que eu acredito. Então, a gente já pode até sentar, mas tudo que for conversado tem que ser anotado. E aí, aquilo que é anotado passa para uma outra pessoa, e aí a gente faz esse deslocamento de uma informação, né, para outra. Então, realmente, a atividade física, não somente como atividade física em si, como, né, caminhar lá fora, sempre tem que ter algo objetivo, como as literaturas sempre mostram, né, que esse tipo de atividade, né, abre a mente. Daí ele menciona, né, a questão das forças, do campo de força, porque a gente, né, sempre está num campo de força social, econômico, e aí a gente sempre tem que criar essa suspensão, né, para que nós possamos engajar. Então, a palavra é trabalhe, trabalhe, trabalhe. Hoje, por exemplo, em relação às crianças, todas elas deveriam aprender a escrever, porque com a IA, que são modelos de linguagem, elas acabam não aprendendo a lidar com isso. Então, nós temos de aprender, saber como elas funcionam, para que esse campo de força não acabe nos, né, assumindo esse papel.
Tem mais alguém que vai querer fazer alguma pergunta? Tá. A gente precisa ir encaminhando para o final. Então, quem tiver pergunta agora, fale agora o cálice para sempre.
Perfeito. Primeiramente, muito obrigado, viu? Dizer que esse evento, né, o Contaminações Sensíveis, tem me afetado bastante, né? E vou reiterar um pouco essa perspectiva da caminhada, porque a caminhada, ela é central no meu trabalho de doutoramento. Então, reitero também uma frase do Nietzsche que eu disse ontem na apresentação do meu trabalho, onde o Nietzsche afirma que nós devemos duvidar radicalmente de um pensamento sentado. Então, eu acho que o Nietzsche nos diz muito quando ele afirma isso. Então, radicalizando, né, essa proposta do Nietzsche, eu me propus, durante 7 meses, a caminhar cerca de 4.000 quilômetros, né, por 5 estados no Brasil, tendo como pano de fundo o Rio São Francisco. E a minha pergunta ela é uma pergunta um tanto quanto capciosa, porque é a pergunta que me fazem em relação aos materiais que eu mobilizo na minha pesquisa de doutorado. Que materiais são esses, né? São as notações que estão nesse caderno aqui. Muitas notações, enfim, pensamentos. E, ao pular para a escrita da tese no campo filosófico e filosófico-educacional, há uma certa discussão de que esse tipo de mobilização dos materiais ele ressoaria num certo tipo de fenomenologia. Então, eu tenho tentado contornar esse problema, que é um problema, né, enfim, que me assedia constantemente, né, porque pressupõe que uma consciência, né, esteja observando as coisas e narrando. Então, é a partir de uma certa ideia de perspectivismo, ou de perspectivismo das coisas a partir do Surriot, e, sobretudo, a partir do Ingold, com a ideia do andarilhar, né, o movente, aquele que caminha atento, que eu tenho, diríamos assim, driblado esse assédio fenomenológico, né? Mas os filósofos eles não se cansam de ainda afirmar que é fenomenologia às vezes, ou etnografia, mas eu não creio que seja isso, né? Eu creio que seja outra coisa, e a pergunta vai nesse sentido, né? Como driblar essa ideia de que é o sujeito, né, ou uma certa suposição de sujeito, de eu, que está narrando o mundo ou descrevendo-o. Essa é a pergunta. Muito obrigado mais uma vez.
So the question is about the eye. The subject. So I'm not sure if I apologize if I don't understood the question.
Desculpa se eu não entendi a pergunta corretamente. Ele está tentando.
So maybe first of all, because you referred also to Ingold and the walking. So I just took this one text. So I know Tim Ingold has written a lot about walking in other ways. So I just took this text because he makes this distinction, and I think this distinction is not enough. So that you have to make an additional distinction. So it's not to talk about all the other things that he in other books and texts is writing about walking, and I think very interesting things about walking, about lines, about the lines and so on. So that's one thing. Now about the subject, yes, I think for me the point remains. I'm sorry that I always come back to the same point, but the point is, this is Universitas Studium, so the point is to become a student. And a student is being without identity, without subjectivity to a certain extent, in a certain way. Of course, you are still there and so on, but in a certain way, it's to put at stake your subjectivity. So a student is no one. If you are a student, you are no one, but you can become anyone. So it's if you are in that condition of being a student, then the things can change you. Then what you encounter can really change you. You become another. That's a formation. That's the formation. So this element of becoming a student is for me crucial. And I don't know if that now is an answer to your question about subjectivity, but it is a desubjectivation. Yeah. In that sense, also again, very Rancierian. So it's a desubjectivation.
Em relação ao Ingold, eu só tirei um texto dele que em relação a essa questão, mas não é o suficiente. Em relação ao sujeito, eu vou voltar para aquilo que eu falo do Universitas Studium. Então, o aluno ele não tem mais identidade, ele não tem mais subjetividade em um determinado ponto, né? Então, isso está em risco, e é isso que eu trago, essa condição de você mudar para você se tornar um outro. Então, não significa que quando você é aluno, você não é ninguém, mas você pode, sim, se tornar alguém. E, novamente, eu reforço a questão do encounter, que é... Aqui ele quer dizer o sentido de confrontar, e aí, que é algo crucial, que é você realmente, né, se confrontar. Então, a subjetividade se torna bissubjetividade, é isso? Dessubjetividade, desculpa. Desculpa. É isso.
Temos mais duas pessoas, né, que gostariam de fazer pergunta. Vamos lá.
I would like to know if you can talk a little bit more about the concept of attentional walking you brought in the beginning of your speech. For example, if you can imagine our journey as a researcher, as a student here in the academic world, as a pathway, we always have an intention. So maybe it's an intentional walking. How can you bring this attentional walking, this childlike walking, to our researchings to our writings?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question and a very good example of what is happening. Yeah, what is happening is that there are many forces that make it very difficult to have attentional walking. Because there are all kinds of forces that make you, or that ask you to go in a certain direction, to work in a certain, to come up with certain output. Also, this output is then also formatted in a certain way, and so on. There are many forces that make it very difficult. I think there is so the way that, I don't know, so I speak from my experience in Leuven, in Europe. I think there is a lot of research, and also university research, which is not attentional at all, which has nothing to do with attention, but a lot with intention. So, yeah, again, it's the same. Huh? So, though it's, the same in the sense of it is a way. So studying is trying to find out what helps you, on the one hand, to resist some forces, and on the other hand, to suspend some of these forces. Yes? So, yeah, it's a very stupid example that I give, but in Leuven it's like this. So when I was a student, libraries during the exams, university libraries were completely empty in the exam time. They were completely empty because we were studying in our rooms. We had to study for the exam, so we were studying in our rooms. So now university libraries, especially in the exam times, are completely full. You have to make a reservation to go. You cannot go. Yeah. I think that students realize themselves that these digital things, that they have a force that is difficult to resist alone. And so that they need some help to resist these forces, so to be able to be attentive to the study. So they say, okay, there is a social pressure in the library. There is a social pressure. You cannot not so easily do all kinds of things that you do at home in your own private room. So we organize a social pressure by going to the library. It's a little bit stupid example, but it's so I think that students realize themselves that there are many forces that make it very difficult to really be attentive. And I think that the same goes for a PhD or for so there are many forces that make that make it difficult, and so you have to find ways. And I strongly believe that you have to find collective ways. In a way, you could say that was what institutions were for. Yes? Institutions organize a certain force that helps you to resist others. For example, class starts at 9. So you have to be there at 9. If you are at home at your computer and you can learn wherever and what time you want, there can be many distractions and no reason to go to your computer. But the institution organizes time in a certain way to help you. You can look at these institutions, you can always look at them as disciplining in the bad way. Yes? And unfortunately, Foucault has played a bad role in that, although I think he also says many other things about institutions. But we can have all these critique on institutions, yes, of course, yes, they are disciplining, but you cannot learn to read without discipline. You cannot learn to write without discipline. You will not study without discipline. You are not going to win the football cup if you are not going to discipline your body and the bodies of others. So you have to discipline, and you can try to find ways that help you to do that, to find the force to do that, to find but I think there are many forces today that make it very difficult, or that yeah, that this attentional wayfaring is not so easy in a study context today. I don't know how it is here, but for example, in my case, so we have become in a time where now research is going by projects. So going by projects means you have to define the outcomes that you're expecting before you start.
Yes, it's right here.
That's one example of making it difficult to have attentional wayfaring in your study. So I don't know if it is an answer to your question, but I think it's...
Foi uma excelente pergunta, um excelente exemplo. Há muitas forças, né, em relação a essa caminhada intencional, com resultados, direções diferentes, então é muito difícil. Na minha experiência, hoje, na maioria das pesquisas, eles não são intencionais, mas sim, são intencionais. Então, os estudos estão, né, para descobrir esse tipo de ajuda em relação à resistência às forças e também como suspendê-las. Quando eu era estudante, por exemplo, nas bibliotecas das faculdades, elas, durante o período de testes, elas sempre estavam vazias. E hoje é o contrário, durante o período você tem que fazer reserva, então é uma questão de uma força, né, digital. E aí você tem que estar sempre atento a essa questão da pressão social. Então, essas forças, né, tornam tudo muito mais difícil em relação, por exemplo, ao PhD, mas vocês têm que encontrar maneiras coletivas, como, por exemplo, as instituições, por isso que eu acho que a relação, por exemplo, se você tem uma aula às 9h da manhã, que é na faculdade, você tem que estar lá às 9h da manhã, diferente de quando você está em casa e você tem que acessar seu computador e você acaba se distraindo com outras coisas. Então, tudo tem de ser com disciplina. Você não aprende a escrever, você não aprende a ler, você não aprende nada. Como vencer, por exemplo, uma Copa do Mundo. Se você não tiver disciplina, você não vai conseguir. Então, por exemplo, hoje eu não sei como é aqui, mas quando nós temos de fazer projetos, hoje a gente já tem que definir o projeto em si antes mesmo de começá-lo. Aí ele menciona um exemplo de Foucault, e ele menciona também a questão do wayfaring, que é como se... É uma tradução, no caso de você, como se fosse um viajante. Não sei se seria mais ou menos isso dentro do contexto. Tá?
A gente tem ainda... A gente já passou um pouquinho do tempo, né? I don't know. Então, quem mais quer perguntar? Temos 2 pessoas, então, mais 2 pessoas. Poderíamos ficar aqui até meia-noite, pelo jeito, né, conversando, mas a gente vai acabar. Essas são as 2 últimas perguntas. E eu falei, quem não perguntar agora vai escalar para frente, mas se você puder ir falando para ele que eu estou falando. Mas não é verdade, eu gostaria muito de chamar o professor Jean Masschelein para vir fazer esse work field here with us, fazer esse trabalho de campo, que a gente pudesse também fazer essa caminhada juntos. Fica o convite, quem sabe a gente consiga fazer isso em breve.
Boa noite, professor. Meu nome é Osiel, eu sou mestrando em Geografia aqui na Unicamp. Eu e minha orientadora, nós temos desenvolvido um projeto também para desenvolver um atlas para o distrito de Barão Geraldo, né, que é onde nós estamos agora, para tentar, numa tentativa de desfazer um discurso que predomina em Barão Geraldo, de que essa é um distrito universitário e acadêmico e que a vivência desse distrito seja associada à vivência da Unicamp, enquanto que muitos outros bairros dentro do próprio distrito de Barão Geraldo tenham vivências extremamente distantes da Unicamp que não se encaixam nesse discurso da bolha que a gente está imaginando. E para isso a gente está trabalhando nessa constituição de um atlas não consultivo, um atlas de afetos a partir das imagens e de experimentações com múltiplas linguagens, especialmente o cinema e o audiovisual. E, a partir disso, eu gostaria de perguntar quais foram as dificuldades e os desafios que vocês tiveram na prática para desenvolver esse Atlas na cidade de Bruxelas. E, além disso, também gostaria de saber do senhor qual seriam os potenciais para poder explorar um Atlas como esse, tanto na escola quanto na formação de professores. E, por último, uma última questão a nível de curiosidade, talvez, se seria possível associar esse student-like walking ao flaner parisiense que o Walter Benjamin trabalhou. Flaner? Flaner. Se seria possível associar essas duas formas de conceber a cidade e o espaço. Obrigado.
I will not be able to answer to all your questions because related to the first, I'm not aware of the situation. I'm not familiar with the situation that you are describing. Huh? But let me start with the last one, the flaner, the flaneur. So I think it is interesting that this text of Foucault about Baudelaire and about the flaner, that he is precisely saying that it is that is not a way to be very attentive. That is precisely not a way to be very attentive. It is a way to, it's an interesting way. It will bring you in places where you don't want to go and so on and so on. But it remains something different. It remains something different. So it's a little bit the same with the dérive. For me, it's the same with the dérive. Yeah, it's the same in the sense that it works with the attraction, with the attractive force of go where you want. That seems to be very attractive. But and we did this exercise a few years ago, yes, we ask students before we do this walking, you sit here, all the students sit here and say, now you go out, it's in the city of Leuven, it's a small city, now you go out and you walk where you want. You walk where you want, but you have to note where you go, and you have to you have to follow, you have to trace it, where you go. And then you come back together, and then you put these together, and then 80% of the students have done just the same trajectory. Yes, because there are a lot of intentions. Even if you can go where you want, you are not going where you want. Well, where you want in some sense, but it's a very I really don't think that is working. So for me, it's not flâner. It's not flâner. It's very often I find used too romantic, too simple. Go where you want. Think what you want. You cannot think what you want. Therefore, there are too many forces that make you think what you think. So you have to do something to be able to think what you want in a certain sense, or so I don't believe that. The other thing about the atlas, making the atlas, so what were the difficulties that we had in Brussels? The first difficulty with the courses that we have in our universities, the first difficulty is that students don't believe that you don't know what has to come out of it. Because they are used to exams and they are used to have grades for what they do, so they want to know what you want. Yes, it's a very big difficulty to if you say we are going to walk and I ask you to walk this line and I cannot say why. I cannot say why. I say you go this line because this is the line that you have to walk. Accept the line. Yeah? That is something very difficult. That is often the most difficult. So that they do it, that they do these kind of things. So that is really something that I really learned. There have been many reasons, because we have been working in cities many times in cities which were post-conflict cities, just after wars or after upheavals in cities and things like that. And yeah, I myself have often said, why do I am here now again with students doing this? Why? But I have really learned, it's really an experience, that's really an experience, that if you do this kind of work, always something interesting comes out of it. And you don't know what, you have to accept it, but you have to also do the work. So it means, for example, I know that I learned, I know now, but I learned that if I want to have interesting conversations with students, I have to do two things. I have to make them avoid the word I. So I don't want to hear I. I think, no, you don't think. Say what you have, Rancière, say what you have seen, not I think. I'm not interested in your opinion. I want to know what you have seen and heard. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that I have to be attentive myself. So it means that in that period, I eat very little. It's a very physical thing. I eat very little because if I eat, I become tired. Yes, that's a physical thing. That's simple. That's a very simple thing. But I learned that it is really important. So there are many of these things that came out of these exercises over the years. But the basic thing is physical and work. You have to do an effort. In that sense, I think this quote of Benjamin is really correct. If you want to walk a city childlike, you have to do an effort. You have to work. So it's not a real answer to your question, but I think it's also interesting. That was something what was for me also interesting in Brussels, with the Atlas in Brussels, that it was really the aim to try to make a mapping that is not allowing you to go up and have an overview, but that is drawing you in. That is getting you in, not up. Which is also not so easy to do. You can say that, but it's not so easy to do. So also again here the exercises of what I said of the translating, of the transmedia, to go to different media in different ways. It's the combination of things that makes that happen. It's not one thing that you can do. So it's not that you can say, and now I'm going to be in touch. It's not because you have the intention that it is like that.
Eu não sei se eu tenho uma resposta, né, e se eu tenho conhecimento sobre isso, sobre o francês que ele menciona, mas vocês sempre têm que estar atentos, como a questão da deriva, é uma força de atração, então não é simplesmente ir para um lugar. Então, quando os alunos, né, fazem esse exercício de ir para as cidades, para as pequenas cidades, como nós já fizemos uma vez, eles têm de anotar, eles têm de seguir, eles têm de fazer um traço da cidade. E aí, nesse exemplo, eles voltaram e 80% dos alunos sempre tinham as mesmas coisas, então, sempre as mesmas intenções. Então, não é algo tão simples, não é como se você romantizasse alguma coisa. Então, você tem de fazer alguma coisa. Em relação às dificuldades em Bruxelas, todas as vezes que a gente pede isso para os alunos, eles já querem saber, de fato, o que você quer. E eles perguntam, e a gente, né, não tem essa resposta. Então, simplesmente tem de aceitar, você tem de fazer. Uma das coisas, né, que eu aprendi com isso, quando nós passamos por algumas cidades após, né, as guerras, foi exatamente que você tem de aceitar. E muitas vezes eu me perguntava, por que eu estou fazendo isso de novo? Então, a gente sempre tem que pensar em duas coisas. Primeiro é evitar o eu. Então, nunca dizer eu sim, eu penso dessa forma, eu vi isso. E a segunda coisa é estar atento a si mesmo, como, por exemplo, quando eu estou nesses projetos, eu como muito, muito pouco para eu não ficar cansado. E com muitos anos de... Ai, perdi aqui a minha anotação. Espera aí, achei. Então, através disso, que os exercícios foram surgindo, e aí sempre lembrar, a questão principal é o trabalho e o físico. Então, vocês sempre têm que fazer um esforço, é como aquele caso do andar, né, da criança. E também, quando a gente fez esse mapeamento, né, da cidade de Bruxelas, eu sempre pedia para que eles não subissem, não andassem, não subissem, talvez não andassem... Deixa eu lembrar. E sim se mantivessem no meio, é isso que ele quis dizer, tá? Para que não simplesmente visse, né, a cidade de um único ângulo de cima. E aí, de novo, a questão dos exemplos de você transcrever, de você traduzir, né? Então, é sempre essa combinação de esforços.
Bom, acho que a gente não tem mais tempo para fazer perguntas, né? Já avançamos 30 minutos aqui. Eu queria agradecer imensamente o professor Jean Masschelein por ter vindo e feito essa fala tão provocativa, tão generosa. E fica aberto o convite para que você volte mais vezes, para que a gente faça a caminhada mesmo, vai ser bastante proveitoso também. E, por fim, eu quero fechar os trabalhos dessa primeira edição, imaginando, ontem, pessoas nas mesas falaram, quando tiver o segundo Contaminações, eu fiquei assim, ai meu Deus, que trabalheira, mas agora eu quero terminar hoje com essa intenção, Christian, Thaís, vamos já pensar numa próxima edição aqui, que o professor Jean possa vir novamente, que a gente continue reverberando e ressoando essas contaminações sensíveis. Obrigada, pessoal, por toda a presença.